and we can get started. Hi, and welcome everyone again. Welcome back. I hope you had a relaxing week since I saw you last. And I'm seeing lots of new faces as well here today, which is nice. For those who weren't here last week, where were you? But that'll be focusing on the negative, which we don't want to do. We want to only focus on the positive and on the good. For those who weren't here last week, hi, nice to see you. And for here, how was your week? Did you have a nice week last week? Everyone had a good week? Yeah? Okay, I just want to check you can hear me. So if someone just can unmute and just say, and kind of give me a feedback that you're listening and you can hear, because I know we had some issues last week jamming and the sound wasn't great. So is everyone okay? Can everyone hear me all right? Kind of in and out, the sound.
We can hear you.
We can hear you, no problem.
Quality's not great.
Which one? What isn't great? The video.
The audio as well.
Not great. Okay, that's not cool. Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, a bit louder. Is that better at all? I even just speak up a bit. I'll project my voice a bit more. I'll do that.
Not,
okay. Sorry.
It's not how loud it is. It's that it's jumpy. It sort of gets clicked. It doesn't. It's not smooth.
Oh no. Okay. All right. I'll hope and daven that it just gets a bit better, because it was for most of last week it was okay, right? It was pretty good last week, if I remember, most of last week. So hopefully it will just improve as we go along. If at any point in time it's no good at all, it's really hard to hear me, let me know and I'll just make sure that nothing else in my house is being used, and I'll commandeer all systems and just make sure that we're in charge. So good to see you all. It really is lovely. I'm sure you guys are getting ready for Yom HaAtzmaut in Montreal. I have very fond memories of celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut in Montreal. For those who weren't here last week, is there anyone here that wasn't here last week? Judith, were you? Yeah, Judith, you weren't there. And Esther, you weren't there. You weren't here last week as well? Oh, Esther and Judith, we missed you. Without knowing that you weren't there, we missed you. Retroactively, we missed you.
David as well wasn't there last week.
David. Okay, so David, we missed you as well. You've got lots of homework. You got tons of homework now to catch up. To catch up with everything we touched on last week and everything I basically gave away the secrets of everlasting life, but it was only to the people that were there last week. Unfortunately, I can't give it over again. It was only a one-time thing. So if you missed it, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. But for Judith and for Esther and for David, just a very super brief intro to say that my name's Rabbi Dov Cowan. I have a lot of love for Montreal in my heart because I lived there for 2 years. And it's been a real pleasure that Rabbi Fishman, who's a good friend of mine, asked me if I'd come on and run some classes. And here I am. We started last week talking about mindfulness and meditation. And I asked the people who came on how much experience they have. And I realized we've got a few black belts in the room with us, which is fantastic. And we started touching upon last week the main tenets of mindfulness, which I broke down into the focus on breathing, focus on breath, the importance of being in the here and now, and also having a curious and open-minded attitude to the world around us. I kind of showed those are the three, in my mind, main tenets of modern mindfulness. And what I wanted to show was in Jewish thought, in Jewish philosophy, in the works of our sages especially, there are so many great sources, great writings that have basically been showing us that this is part of our Jewish identity. This is part of our Jewish experience as well. So if you remember last week, we spoke about breath. Does anyone here remember something we said about breathing last week, about something was interesting about breath? Anyone want to kind of jump in and say something they remember from last week? Anybody? No? I'll do it for you if you don't want to. I know that you want to say it, you're just a bit shy. I get it. I do understand. I get that completely. What we said was that in Egypt, when the Jewish people were in Egypt and they were under Pharaoh's control in Egypt, it says that they couldn't breathe. When Moses came and said, "We're going to leave Egypt, we're leaving Mitzrayim," it said they couldn't hear because of kotzer ruach, which is short breath. And we said Rashi, the famous commentator Rashi, says there, kotzer ruach implies short breath, an inability to think straight, to think in broad-mindedly, and it's really linked to the breath we take. And I mentioned to you last week that in one of the songs we sing on Shabbat, Sur Mishalah, we mentioned that the concept of Geula, of redemption, is linked to the Ruach Apenu, the breath in our noses. Deep, long breath represents freedom, and short breath, short, terse breath represents slavery, represents Egypt. And that's one of the things we spoke about last week. We then were beginning to talk about the focusing on the here and now. And if you remember, I brought you that beautiful verse from Tehillim. The Rabbi Nachman of Breslev is the one who really brings that out. I can't really go back, unfortunately. What I will do is, like I said, I'll send you the PowerPoint through Rabbi Fishman, and you'll have it yourselves to go through. But let's just jump in now today. I'm going to share screen again. I'm going to jump in here. 1 second. I've got to do this. Then I do that. Gosh, because like I said, it's been so long since I actually slideshow, and we're in. Okay, can everyone see this? It says that. Does everyone see the slideshow? Yeah. You guys can see. Okay, so we talked about this last week. We talked about the idea of being in the moment, about staying in this moment is a Jewish idea, very Jewish idea. So this is what we're up to last week here. I think we finished with this poem. That's how we finished. If you remember, Rita, you were here, you can remind me. We finished with the poem last week saying, Ha'avar ayin, the past is no more. Ha'atid adayin, the future is yet to come. The ha'aveh keref ayin, and the present passes like the blink of an eye. The aga minayin, so why worry? And if you remember, I told a lovely little story at the end of last week, and I'll tell it again just to really emphasize just how important this notion is in Judaism. The stories of the Chozeh of Lublin, who was jostled by the Polish soldiers on his way to shul in the morning. And they said, "Where are you going?" And he said, I don't know. And so they clapped him in chains and put him in jail. And that night, when they said to him, "How could you speak in such an insolent way? How could you be so despicably rude?" He answered by saying, "When I left to leave my house this morning to go to the shul, I thought I was going to synagogue, but I ended up in a jail cell. So I didn't know where I was going." And the reality is, none of us know where we're going. And it's a very very flexible way of seeing the world. It's interesting to see how much chaos, how much anger, how much frustration we carry in our lives when the things that we want to happen don't go according to the plans that we want. We have a sense of what we need to be, and if it doesn't go our way, we get so frustrated, so upset. Outside there, even though I told my kids to stop kicking the soccer ball, they're still doing it. That's my own issues of education I have to deal with eventually. But the same kid who's kicking outside during Corona, every single night of Corona, we would say to our kids, as we put them to sleep at night, I would ask them, "What's your best thing and what's your worst thing?" That's what we've done for years and years now with our kids. When we put them to sleep at night, we ask them, "What was your best thing today? What was your worst thing today?" So right in the middle of Corona, I asked my son, I said, "What's your worst thing that happened today?" And he said, "My worst thing is that you won't let my dreams come true." Now you can imagine how distraught I was when I heard my son, my dear child, look at me in the eyes and say that I wasn't allowing his dreams to bear fruition. I'm sure every single one of you would feel heartbroken if your child told you you were sitting on their dreams. So I said to him quite plainly and simply, tell me, dear child, what is this dream that I am not allowing you to live? What is the dream that I'm cutting off? And he looked at me with his beautiful eyes and said, he said very simply, you don't let me do whatever I want to do. And my dream is that you would just let me do whatever I want to do. I was like, great. So basically, in his mind, whatever he wants goes. And the fact that I'm stopping him from getting what he wants is his dream, he told me, was he just wants to watch endless TV and play endless video games because it's Corona. And I was stopping him. And therefore, I was killing his dreams. But you know what? To a certain extent, we live the same way. We have our dreams, our aspirations, our wants, and our needs. And many of them are very valid. They're very valid. It's right. We should have aspirations for ourselves. But we get so caught up in that, we get almost frozen into this sense of what needs to be. And that's where so much frustration, anger, and resentment comes out when it doesn't turn out the way you want it to be. So therefore, we're being told here, just be flexible. You know, this is a very important thing. Be in the now. What have we got now that we can be happy with? So let's move on. The third element that I mentioned, because I wanted to move with you, because I would like to get today into practical meditation. So the third element I mentioned to you was curiosity and open-heartedness, living life with a sense of wonder. And this is also a really important part of mindfulness. I'm going to ask you, each and every single one of you, I'm going to be really cool now. I'm going to do stop share, okay? I'm going to ask you to go, I'm going to call your name out, and I'm going to ask you to unmute, and I want you to tell me what's the most amazing thing that you have seen so far today. Okay, I'm going to call you out, and you're asking me what's the most amazing thing you've seen so far today. Esther, you're on first.
The sun's shining today, and it hasn't shone for quite a few days. That was very amazing to me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Esther. And just to let you know that it's such a wonderful thing that we in Britain can share that with you, because it's also been horribly grey here for days as well. So we share a lot, not just our common, what do they say? It's the language, what's it called? Two countries separated by a common language. Thank you, Esther. Judith, what's the most amazing thing you've seen today?
I saw a week-old baby girl.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. And is this baby girl related to you?
No.
I just saw a little baby girl. Beautiful. Little hands, little eyes. Beautiful. Thank you, Judith. Rita, what's the most amazing thing you've seen today?
Well, I had a wonderful experience speaking to someone whose help I had been needing for quite a while, but couldn't identify who could help me. And that person was amazing, went out of his way to offer an amazing help. And the day just shone after that for me.
Oh, lovely. It's so wonderful when we get surprised when the person we're looking for can really help us, not just, you know, point a direction, but to really be on hand. Thank you, Rita. Over to Terry on line 13. Welcome, Terry.
Hi. I'm lucky to be in the country now, and after being in all day yesterday in the rain, I just walked out, and the trees and the fresh air, and just hit me just how lucky I am.
Amazing, beautiful trees, fresh air. I love it. Bonnie, are you with us, Bonnie, to be able to tell us, Bonnie, what's the most amazing thing you've seen today? It looks like we're having some issues with Bonnie with the satellite phone there live. We're going to go live back to Lynn, and we're going to come back to Bonnie a little bit later in the studio. Lynn, over to you.
It wasn't what I saw, it was what I heard. I was playing Edith Piaf. And
No, rien, de rien.
And it just went, so that was my
Wow.
amazing moment.
Beautiful, beautiful, thank you. Sonny, over to you. What's the most amazing thing you've seen so far today, Sonny? You'll have to unmute yourself for us to hear you, Sonny. You can unmute and then we can hear you.
Okay, the most amazing thing is When I get out of the bed in the morning, I say, Modi Ani, that I'm glad to be alive. Thank you, God, for turning my soul within me. And that's how I start my day. And it's the best part of the day.
Beautiful, beautiful. Wow. The first moments of the day, feeling life rushing through you. Amazing. Elaine, over to you on line 20. Welcome, Elaine, to the show. Long time listener, first time caller.
For me, the most amazing thing was the fresh fruits and vegetables at my local grocery store this morning.
Beautiful, amazing, fantastic. Yeah, little things that we don't take notice of, just that we can actually access different types of fresh fruits and vegetables. Tom, over to you.
Yeah, staying on the baby track, I saw some amazing things this morning outside my window, and that is baby birds being fed by their parents.
Hazy Yofi, wow, I don't get to see that. And being in Canada, it was probably sort of like a golden eagle or something, right?
No, the sparrows and cardinals.
I'm joking, yeah, I know. You guys are on Mont Tremblant. I mean, I don't know where the golden eagles are in Quebec. Are they? Maybe, I don't know. For another time. But thank you, Tom. Over to you, Katarina. Over to you, Katarina, yeah.
Yeah, well, the spring, all the elements of a spring day, without too much heat, too much cold, too much rain. So it's not seeing and experiencing.
Experiencing just life in a calm way. I like that. Sounds nice. Beautiful. Thank you. We go to Guyphone. Who I'm not sure Guyphone is, but you were here with us last week, but you weren't down as Guyphone, I think. I don't know if GAI phone. Okay, GAI phone is with us. Yeah,
Could be me.
yes.
Could be Gary.
Yeah, Gary. I don't know why Gary has gone to gay iPhones, but nice to have you with us.
Yeah, right. The answer for me would have the most amazing thing I saw was my daughter this morning.
Beautiful. Okay, fantastic. Yeah. Right, you have to see your daughter and share time. Thank you. Thank you, Gary. David, your camera's off, but if you're with us, do you want to go on mute? Yeah, David, go.
Hi there. The most amazing thing I saw today was an old friend of the family at synagogue who I hadn't seen in a long time. A childhood friend of my mom's, and it was great to catch up and get a hug from her and just catch up after a long period of time.
Beautiful. Amazing. That's so special to see people, right? So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. We go now live to Eon, which I'm guessing is Yvonne Azuelos, but it might not be Yvonne, it might be something else. But at least I know your surname is Azuelos. And I like to think that I'm saying that Spanish sounding name so beautifully Spanish, like Azuelos. Cuando yo hablo español, un poquito español, pero Azuelos, no. Okay, so E-on, if you're there, join us later. We did have some trouble on the phone there with someone earlier, but they,
In dark.
who's that, sorry? Okay, so Sonny, did you want to add something else? Did you want to add another point, Sonny? You're still unmuted. Did you want to add something else for us?
Yeah, I'd like to give you an expression that I like, and it goes like this. When you live in the past, you're depressed. When you live in the future, you're anxious. But when you live in the present, you're at peace.
Beautiful. Love it. Very, very nice. Sonny, were you with us last week? Because that's when I gave that little poem in Hebrew. It says, in Hebrew, the way it says is Ha'avar ayin, ha'atit adayin, ha'hoveh keref ayin, as da'aga minayin. It rhymes beautifully in Hebrew, but literally means the past is gone, the future is yet to come, and the present passes like the blink of an eye. So where's the room to worry? Where is there time to worry? Everything's just gone. So it's similar to what you're saying, Sonny. I like it very much. All of you are wonderful. You're just such wonderful people, I have to say. And God bless Canada, because when I run these programs with people in England, oftentimes, and I'll say, what's the most amazing thing you've seen today? They'll often be like, and it's very hard. I don't know why we've been in England. It seems much harder, especially young people. They really struggle. I was in a school this morning and I asked this question, and it was a bunch of boys, 16-year-old boys, and most of them didn't have anything to say at all, which I don't blame them because they're not tuned in to start seeing the amazing things in life. But that's what we are doing. That's what we're here to do. And that's what I'm going to be demonstrating here through these following beautiful sources to show you here exactly what's going on. So let me show you that we are going to be focusing on this idea of hitbonanut. Hitbonanut means to contemplate. We see this very much in the words of our sages, especially in the words of Rabbi Nachman and other great sages, that there is a huge skill to be able to hitbonen, to be able to observe in a reflexive way. So if you look at the way the actual this word is actually built, how it's conjugated, you take the word boner, that means to build, and the word bina, which is wisdom. They both share the same root, bina and boner, to build wisdom. Because wisdom is something which we do build step by step. We craft, we take elements of knowledge and we craft them together and we build our knowledge, we build our system, we build our understanding of the world around us. Whenever you have a hit at the beginning of any Hebrew word, it's reflexive, right? Ani mitlabesh means I dress myself. Ani mitpalel, which we'll talk about another time, is I kind of do a self-judgment or I self-wonder. Ani mitbonen means I build my wisdom by looking within me and by taking the elements of the world around, everything that I'm picking up, and seeing how they fit within my system of understanding, and therefore having a much deeper awareness of the world around me. Being a mitbonen is, I think, one of the most important things we can be as Jews, taking a look not just at the physical world, but even events in the world, and being mitbonen and thinking about them in a deep way, thinking about them in a way that connects us back always to purpose. Because that's one of the things that people want more than anything else, is a sense of purpose, sense of understanding of why we are here. So this is a beautiful quote to you from King Solomon, Shlomo Melech, in Mishlei. Look what he says here. He says, make your ears attentive to wisdom, incline your heart to understanding. Only if you call your heart understanding and give your voice to discernment, if you seek it like silver and like treasure, search it out, then you will understand awe of the infinite and knowledge of its manifestation you will find. I.e., you have to go and look for godliness in the world. You have to look for the creator in this world. You have to search and toil. I'm going to ask a question, see if anyone has the answer here. How old was Abraham Avinu, when he discovered that there was one God? Anyone know? Fingers on buzzers. Your chance to win a holiday for two to Trois Rivières.
You know, something about 78 sounds, I don't know.
78?
78.
78 was a good year. It's the year I was born. But no, I've never had 78 before, but that 75 is the gematria of Abraham. Maybe that's where you heard something before. No, not 78. Anyone else know? When did he discover that there was one creator? See, it's very interesting because when I went to, when I went to school, when I went to the school I went to, the primary school, we always were taught that Abraham was 3 years old. He was a child when he discovered that there was one God. That's one of the things we're always taught. He was 3 and he smashed his father's idols. Have you heard this before? He smashed the idols that his father created because he was 3. Now, what's fascinating is that Maimonides tells us he was actually 40 when he discovered there was one God. So where does this age 3 come in? So Maimonides says that he was 3 when he began to look for God, and he was 40 when he discovered and found that there is just one creator God, which means that Abraham spent 37 years searching, asking, debating, discovering, asking again and again. 37 years of his life were spent to come to the conclusion there is only one God. Now that should blow your mind a little bit, because we For us, it doesn't seem like such a strange notion that there's one God. We all believe in one God. We believe that, if anything, okay, there are those who don't believe in God at all. I haven't asked each and every one of you what you do or don't believe, but most people will either believe in one God or no God, except if you come from a practice of Hinduism or some other idolatrous thing. But really, it's either one God or no God. So how can it be that it took 37 years? And that is the thing. Do you see that? I often get people coming to me where I work, JLE, and they're like, Rabbi, I'm an agnostic, or Rabbi, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. So I'm always saying to them, that's fine. I've got no problem at all with that. But let me just ask you a question. How much time have you dedicated in your life to really asking the questions, to developing, to discerning, to debating, to reading, to investigating? How much time have you given to that? And the answer almost every time is nothing. They will say, oh, I read a book or I watched a YouTube clip, or because it's much easier to not believe in God. It's much easier to put the whole belief of God into a black box of like, I'm not sure if, maybe, yes, no. So I'll put it into a black box and maybe one day I'll get to the question. But for the moment, let's just leave God out of the picture and put it in an agnostic box. I don't know, yes, no, I'd rather not deal with it. But the reality is that actually, if you take some time to go and look, there's a commandment in the Torah to love God. We're told, V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha. You should love the Lord your God. So it's very strange. How can we be commanded to love the Creator? We are being commanded to have an emotion. I can be commanded not to eat lobster. I can be commanded not to eat fruit and produce from the 7th year. I can be commanded to give charity, but how can I be commanded to have an emotional feeling called love? How is that possible? I'm sure you've all thought of this before. Lynn's got an answer. Go for it, Lynn.
Well, it's a comment. I don't have the answer, but when I think of love God with all your heart as a commandment, to me the inference is its import. And not love as an emotion, but love as an embodiment of all creation and all that it is. So and that's my comment.
Okay, that's beautiful. And you know what? What I was going to actually answer wasn't too far off. I was going to say that the Sefer Chinuch, which is one of the books that took all the mitzvahs, all the commandments, and elucidated how to keep them, basically says, how does one come to love God or love? You have to go into the world and look and see and notice and have a sense of wonderment and awe. And that is how you build that love, by going out and seeing the creation, being aware of the rocks and the fields and the valleys and the waterfalls and the birds and the baby sparrows and and the raindrops and the spider webs. And that's how you build that love. You have to go out, you have to search, and you have to live with a sense of awe and wonderment always. And this is what I'm going to show you some more. This is a very interesting thing, that in the temple, in the Beit HaMikdash, there was the ark, right? The Ark of the Covenant. Now, on top of the ark, there were the 2 cherubs, and the cherubs had the faces of, anybody know what the faces of the cherubs were? The faces of the cherubs were faces of children. They're children's faces. So that's strange. Why would they have children's faces on the cherubs? And the answer, if seen in a few places, is just like children see the world with a sense of awe and wonderment, that a child, looks at a baby sparrow and says, isn't that incredible, the way that it knows, how to feed? No one's taught it how to feed. A child sees a spider's web and is in absolute awe, can spend hours watching a spider spin its web. So too, we throughout our life have to have this sense of awe. Just like those children's eyes, we have to have children's eyes throughout our entire life. I saw this quote beautifully, states that, there are no 7 wonders of the world in the eyes of a child. There are 7 million. And a few of you mentioned being around children today, but it's amazing watching a child see the world. And we switch off after a certain point in time. We switch off and we say, yeah, seen there, been there, done that, got the picture. I've been there already, done it. tick off the box. You can't teach me anything new. I know everything already. What I get a lot from my end, because most of the people I teach normally are in their 20s and 30s, and I'm teaching about Judaism. So I'll often get the kind of comment like, yeah, Rabbi, I went to Sunday school. I heard some classes when I did my bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. You can't teach me anything I didn't know already about Judaism, right? So actually, I went to Jewish schools my entire life, but I have this sense of awe and wonderment that whatever you teach me could be interesting. I'm open to learning something new. I'm open to developing always a deeper understanding. So we have to have those childlike eyes to see, to be open-hearted. Look at this beautiful quote here. Two of them. One is from the Rambam, and one is from Rabbi Aaron Joshua Heschel. The Rambam says, like we said just now, this is in reference to what you mentioned before, Lynn, that he says a person should meditate and contemplate the creation, the workings of the master of the world, his great wonders, and be astounded by the great wisdom that created it, a wisdom that knows no boundaries, right? To be constantly in awe. And this leads into this beautiful quote here from Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, which is the following. He says, our goal should be to live life in radical amazement. Get up in the morning, as I think Solly, is it you that was saying, Solly, I think it was Solly. Sonny was saying, get up in the morning and look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. Everything is phenomenal. Everything is incredible. Never treat life casually. To be spiritual is to be amazed, to never lose. That's awe and amazement of the world around us. I'm not sure if I'm back. Oh, this is so annoying. So frustrating. Normally it's fine, then it goes. Am I back in again? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Actually, no.
Okay, so just to summarize on the three things you mentioned, right? We said that time of 5 p.m. is when everyone starts coming back from work. Okay, I've just asked everyone inside just to stop using all forms of computer. I think one of the big problems I've got is that in the UK now, this is like everyone comes back from work and from 40, that's why there's like a big surge. There's a big surge. There's a big surge with all the computers, everyone in the UK at this time. But I think we're back on. You're all looking great. You all look like you're back with me. Baruch Hashem. I think we're back on. So let's continue. I was just summarizing those 3 points. I talked about breath and the idea of being the present moment. And the third thing was being curious and open-minded. I think I've showed you those 3 things, how during the last experience. Let's go a bit further. Because like I said, we're building up towards practical to do with a bit further. Let's jump in, as we said we would, in number 2. Let's go in here. Okay, so just I'm going to set the slideshow. Okay, so ta-da. So this one is called A Practical Guide to Calm Living. Okay, so now we've gone through, is there such a thing as Jewish mindfulness? We're now asking, is there such a thing as, well, not such a thing, what is the practical guide to calm living? Just an interesting thing, I think you'll like this, guys. It's something I think you'll really love. We say after the splitting of the Red Sea, it's quite fascinating. We have a line that says that Hashem is our healer. Ani Hashem Rofecha. I am Hashem, your healer. And we relate to God in so many different ways. We relate to God as Avinu Malkeinu, as our Father, as our King, royalty, family. But here's the other aspect: is God as a healer. That the whole package of Torah and mitzvot is really there to heal us, to give us a healthy way of living. What's fascinating is, by the way, we just started the month of Iyar, and if you look, Ani Hashem Rofecha, I am the God, your healer. It's brought down in some Hasidic sources that you take the Aleph of Ani, you take the Yud of Hashem, and the Resh of Rofecha, and you get the words Iyar, which is the month we're in. And the whole process of the Omer, this counting that we're doing from Pesach to Shavuot, every day of Iyar has the Omer in it. It's the only month in the calendar year that has something every single day, which is the Omer. And therefore, it's brought down that Iyar is a month of healing. I think for many of us, after we ate so much on Pesach, we definitely need a month like Iyar to come afterwards. But the understanding is that it's really a month for healing. But we see throughout that really God is trying to get to be healthy in a spiritual way. Bereshis bara Elokim, in the beginning, God created the world to be a healthy place. He created us to be healthy beings. This is something which is so fundamentally important to understand. Really, just indicative of our unhealthy behavior. It's like a relationship which is pure and strong, and impulsively acting in a way which is unhealthy in every way. Let's go a bit deeper then. As I mentioned before, I wanted to go into this and start almost building up a sense of what the neshama is, what the soul is, almost, if you don't mind, an architect. Which is quote from the Zohar. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the very first Lubavitcher Rebbe, is quoting to us from the Zohar that says every soul consists of the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Now, just to understand a little bit better of what these three components are and how they relate to us, we have to run to something called the glass blower analogy. So again, just a quick show of hands. How many of you are familiar with the glass blower analogy before I go on? Because you may all be very familiar with this and it's like old hat. Okay, so I don't know how many of you have actually seen glass blowing before, but you obviously get very hot sand, silicon. The glass blower puts the pipe in, he grabs a whole gloop of this exceedingly hot molten substance, and then he blows into the pipe, and then the air passes through the pipe and it hits the molten substance and it pushes out until it comes to rest. Now, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, which is Rav Shneur Zalman of Liadi, explains that our souls are created in the same manner. Okay, and to do this, I'm going to just stop sharing. I'm going to just point to I'm going to draw. I'm not really an artist. I'm like a bit of Van Gogh, but I'm also going to do the following thing. I think to make it a lot easier. I don't want you. I know you're going to be disappointed now, thinking that I live in a starry-eyed planet, but actually, I mean, I'm sorry to ruin it for everyone. I'm actually here in my little studio at the back of our home. I'll go back to the stars again very soon for you. I know it's problematic. So the way it's understood is like this, that there is a pipe and there is the glass and there is a blower. Okay, the blower that's blowing in. So the understanding is that the intake of breath from Hashem, from our creator, that is the neshama. That intake of breath, which is basically the highest level of the soul that we have. That's the neshama. The breath then gets blown and passed through the pipe. That is our ruach. That is the ruach. Interestingly, ruach is another word for air. As you know, in Hebrew, ruach means air. It also means spirit. Okay, it's also the spirit. That's the ruach. So the passing of the air down the pipe is the ruach. That's the part of our soul which is much more linked to our emotions. So neshama is the part of our soul that links to our intellect. The ruach is the part of our soul that links to our emotions. The air goes in and it hits the edges of the molten substance and it comes to rest at the end. The place where it comes to rest is called the nefesh. The nefesh is that place, that part of our soul which interacts, stops by the body, and it's the lowest part of our soul. It's the part of our soul which we are most familiar with. It's the part of our soul which we are most likely to interact with, is our nefesh. Ruach, again, is a step up. That's the passing of the air through. And the neshama is the highest level. That's the intake of breath from God. Zin, that's neshama. Breathe out, that's ruach. And nefesh is where the soul comes to rest. And this glass blower analogy is used by the Rebbe of the first Rebbe of Lubavitch to explain these different aspects of our soul. Neshama, your highest part of your soul. We'll get that, please God. Maybe in future classes we'll talk about it. That's the highest part of your soul. Ruach, that part of your soul which really is dealing with like higher emotions. And then nefesh is where your soul and body essentially meet. It's where your soul and body meet. The nefesh. And it's the part of the soul we're most familiar with. Now, actually, funnily enough, in this week's Parsha, and I know that Esther, you're excited for this one because it's a this week Parsha one, you like this. In this week's Parsha, Achrei Mois, it tells us we cannot eat any blood. You can't eat the blood of an animal, right? So that's all you know about salting, all that we salt meat, etc. We can't eat the blood. Why can't we eat the blood of an animal? Why not? Anybody know why there's such an injunction to not eat the blood of animals? Terry?
It's like life.
Right. And the actual word, beautiful, and the words we have for that are, and with this, I'll jump back into sharing the screen with you again, because I've got it here for you here. The words we use are, it says here, as you can see, so because I've got you all in this my picture here. Okay, it says, therefore I say to Israelite people, no person among you shall partake of blood, nor shall the stranger who resides among you take part of the blood. It says, ki hanefesh. Oops, I didn't put it on this slide. I'm so sorry. Okay, I apologize. I'll tell you, because ki hanefesh hu hadam, because the nefesh of the animal is in its dam, is in its blood. Ki hanefesh hu hadam. Therefore, the soul of the animal is in its blood. Interesting enough, this part of our soul is in our blood, right? There's information in our blood. I don't know how many of you are working in the medical field. I'm sure you'll understand and know that so much of what you can tell about a person, you can tell from their blood. One of the first things we do when we're unwell, we go for a blood test, right? Because there's tons of info that's based in our blood. Okay, so that's why, by the way, you'll see in some countries, they like drinking the blood of animals. I've heard the place like Thailand, you can buy a shot of snake blood. They'll kill a snake and they'll put the snake blood into a shot glass and give people snake blood to drink because it makes you like a snake, you know, or it makes you wily and you can attack in a very strong way if you drink snake blood. So this is something really important to know, that the nefesh is that lower part of the soul. It's the part that we are most familiar with. Now, why am I talking about this? Because what I'd love to be able to develop is this idea of menuchat hanefesh. How many of you have heard this expression, menuchat hanefesh, before? Menuchat hanefesh. Well, you've heard of menucha maybe, because even as a kid, I remember the song about Shabbat menucha. About Shabbat menucha. Menucha is resting, being in a place of rest. Menuchat hanefesh is when our nefesh can feel at rest, when our nefesh can feel calm, when our nefesh can feel that it's not jumping around, that it's in a state of equilibrium. As I said here, the soul, I've got it here for you, right? The nefesh is the root of human physical experience. It's the physical animalistic part of the self. The physical sensations, fleeting thoughts, and emotions are all experienced through our nefesh. So right now, the physical sensations that you have of in your body, like whether you feel, your body feeling good, feeling bad, feeling tight, feeling relaxed, any fleeting thoughts you have, that's not deep intellectual, philosophical thinking, but rather thoughts like, oh my gosh, I need to put my dinner on after this, or where I leave my keys, or I need to pay back Brian after this class. That's your fleeting thoughts. And finally, emotions, or your lower emotions, are all experienced in your nefesh. And that's why nefesh is really the part of the soul we're most familiar with. It's the closest to our body. When we talk about body and soul, even though we have different levels of soul, nefesh is the part that we are most closely aware of. So let's go a little bit more. So as I mentioned, the nefesh is physical sensations, your emotions, and your fleeting thoughts. Now, those three elements are we're all very aware of. I mean, they take over sometimes. They can flood our system. You can feel anxious, you can feel sad, you can feel worried, you can feel elated, and you can have thoughts that are flying throughout your head constantly that are just bugging us around. But they, it doesn't have to be bad or good. They can be neutral thoughts where they're constantly going, or just physical aches and pains or physical sensations within our body. We are aware of these things constantly. Now, one of the greatest things we can do is be able to get to a place of menucha, of rest, of resting those three things, of resting physical sensations, emotions, and fleeting thoughts. We see there's another beautiful pasuk here from you. This is in Exodus. We say in V'shamru b'nei Yisrael, which we say every Shabbat, Ve'inu b'nei Yisrael ois hi le'olam, yisheish b'masa Hashem es hashamayim es haaretz, u'v'yom ha'shevi'i shavas vayi nafash. It shall be a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel. When 6 days Hashem made heaven and earth, on the seventh day he ceased from work and vayi nafash. What does that mean, vayi nafash? Have you ever asked that question before? We say this every Friday night and Shabbat morning as well. Vayi nafash. And he was refreshed. Rashi says, very interesting, he was refreshed. He says, every form of nefesh is derived from that now nefesh, soul. The idea is that one calms his soul and takes breath when one refuses after the toil of labor. Got to come back to this sense of nafash, being in a state of equilibrium, being in a state of settled soul. I'm going to jump ahead because I want to do a little bit with you here of the practical. We've got like a few minutes to do that, but just take a look here. Rabbi Chaim Friedlander says, he was a rabbi in Israel. From a very shallow perspective, it would seem like menuchas hanefesh is a very desirable trait to have, since the person who has it is always relaxed, anxiety-free, and does everything in a calm way. But it's not a must-have character trait to have in one's divine journey. However, the truth is that menuchas hanefesh is fundamental. One needs to have it in order to find any success in their life. So I'm going to obviously say that next week we'll continue here, but for the last 8 minutes, let's just do it practical. Let's do it 8 minutes practical, where we can start to tap in a little bit to this together. Now, Esther, Lynn, Judith, and Terry and Katrina, you have your screens on. I know everyone else is with me, but even if you've got your screens off, just if I know you're there, that'd be really helpful. Just so you can say hello, or you can come on off the screen for a second if you want, or you can just be present, whatever's good for you. There you go. Thank you, Tom. You're there. Okay, amazing. So I'm going to ask you just to put yourself.
I'm still here. David is still here.
Okay, perfect. Amazing. Great. Thanks, guys. Amazing. So, okay. Just sit with your back straight in the chair. I'm just going to do a very simple nefesh, menuchas nefesh. That's all. Okay, and we're going to practice it this week. And when we come back next week, we're going to do it again. Okay, we're going to strengthen this muscle because it's a muscle strengthening exercise. Okay. So, back straight against the chair. Feet against the ground. Try not to have anything disturbing you. Try not to have anything that's going to annoy you. I don't know if any of you are uncomfortable with meditation. Don't worry if you are. It's a very short one today. So let's go. Take a big deep breath in through your nose. Hold for a few seconds and then breathe out through your nose. Once again, breathing in through your nose. Hold for a few seconds and then breathing out through your nose. Beautiful. Just being present here in the moment. Breathing in through your nose and noticing the air is cooler as you breathe in. Hold for a few seconds and then breathe out, noticing the air is warmer as you breathe out through your nose. Once again, breathing in, noticing the cooler air coming in. Hold for a few seconds and breathe out again, noticing the warmer air as you breathe out. Beautiful. Just feeling calm. Nowhere you need to rush to. There's nowhere we need to go to. Just being in the moment. Beautiful. Feeling the sensation of your feet against the floor. Feeling the sensation of being held and supported by the chair that you're in. Beautiful. Just ask yourself the question, what's the loudest sound that you can hear right now? And then ask yourself, what is the quietest sound that you can hear right now? Just being aware of this moment that you're in. Like I said, the eyes closed, just feeling calm and present. I'm going to ask you just to turn your attention now to ask yourself, how are you feeling in your physical body right now? How are you feeling physically right now? Just check in with yourself, checking in. How are you feeling in your physical body? Are you feeling achy? Are you feeling just actually really good, that your body feels good today? Is anything hurting? Is everything just feeling good? Just being aware, checking in with your body, just asking yourself, non-judgmentally, how am I in my body today? How am I feeling physically today? Beautiful. Next, we're going to go a layer in. I'm going to ask you just to become aware of how are you feeling emotionally right now, being aware of your emotions. How are you feeling emotionally? Now, this is not in any way meant to be judgmental. We're not judging ourselves. Shouldn't have any judgment of how we're feeling, but just being aware of how am I feeling in my emotions. Become aware of it. Am I feeling happy, anxious, sad, elated? Just being aware, that's all. Being aware of how I'm feeling in my emotions right now. Again, it's not a good or a bad, or right or wrong. It's just about being aware. Noticing yourself. Beautiful. And last but not least, this is a bit harder. Just ask yourself, where are you in your thoughts? How are you feeling in your thoughts? What are you thinking about right now? This is hard, very hard to notice your thinking, but try calmly to notice non-judgmentally what you are thinking about. Now, it might help you to imagine yourself sitting on a chair or a comfy sort of chair and watching your thoughts on a screen in front of you. The thoughts will pop in and pop out. Don't engage in them. Don't give them necessarily any credence, but just noticing the thoughts popping in and popping out. Just being aware, again, non-judgmentally, being aware of the thoughts that you're having. Just being aware. Now take a big deep breath in. And breathe out again. You should start to feel this sense of calm in your system. Calm within your system, just to know that there's an I, there's a higher sense of self, which is able to notice your thinking, to notice your emotions, to notice your physical self. And with a little bit of notice, when you shine your torch a little bit on those areas, they feel a sense of calm. Your thoughts have calmed, your emotions have calmed, body's calmed, you're being held, you're aware of how you are, you're aware of yourself, and you should feel a little sense of a menucha, a little sense of calm as you're about to go into the rest of your day in Montreal, just being aware, more self-aware of who you are, because deeply, deeply, you know that you are not your thoughts, and you know that you are not your actions, and you know that you are not your emotions. You are beyond that. And you have the power to choose how you want to respond in any given situation. So in this state of calm, just beautiful calm, take a big deep breath in and deep breath out. Beautiful. And gradually come back into the room. You can open your eyes. If you want, you can rub your hands together. Rub your hands together and cover your eyes. If you're really happy and want to stay in the space, do that as well. If you're feeling like really relaxed, you just don't have to come back in at all. Time now is, it's 1 p.m. Canada time, so I'm going to have to stop, I believe. But I just want you to to reflect to yourselves after this, just how it feels to have just checked in with yourself and your emotions, feelings, thoughts, just to check in. That's your nefesh that you just accessed. That's the nefesh. And it should feel calmer. Does anyone here feel calmer, a little bit calmer than they did before we started this little exercise? Yeah, we've got a few calm faces there. Brilliant. And what we'll do is next week, we'll develop this more, we'll unpack it even more. We'll go into a few more detailed aspects of this, and we'll talk about the body and the soul together, and we'll develop more. But the most important take home from today is to understand that we're made up of a shama, a ruach, and nefesh. The nefesh is the lowest part of the soul that interacts with the body. It's the part that we're most familiar with. And it's good to check in and have these techniques. That it wasn't a very hard technique. We took 8 minutes there, and people are feeling, I'm seeing some smiles, people are feeling a lot more relaxed. So if we can learn to do this very often, just to check in with ourselves. This is actually a great Hasidic Rebbe called the Piazetzner Rebbe. He taught us, it's called Hashkata. He called it, it's the form of Hashkata, getting quiet, just getting quiet. noticing yourself, calms the soul, menuchas hanefesh, feel calmer, more aware, you go and rest your day. So with that, I wish you all a Yom Ha'atzmaut Sameach. And thank you for being present. Thank you for your input. And I look forward to seeing you next week as well. I'm really excited.
Thank you. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Sameach.
Yeah, Yom Ha'atzmaut Sameach, and we'll see you next week, please God. Any questions, if you want to contact me, Rabbi Fishman has my email. So I can be contacted. I'll write it on the chat, but it's, I'll write it here quick. If anyone wants to write to me, it's just here. I'm putting my email. If anyone has any questions or wants to have any sources or anything, now I'll try and send it later to Rabbi Fishman before next week, but you can feel free to write to me, rabbidovcowan@gmail.com. Thank you, everybody, and all the very best. Ciao. Arrivederci. Grazie. Bye-bye. Thank you. See you later. Bye-bye.